Hi everyone, good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, okay. Today is session 2 for vCenter Server 7.0. Actually, yesterday's session we discussed about vCenter Server, what is vCenter Server and vCenter Server architecture, vCenter Server component and vCenter Server services. We also started deploying the vCenter Server appliance. So this vCenter Server deployment yesterday we did for the stage 1 and today's session will do for the stage 2. Okay, so today we will, along with the stage 2 deployment, we will also understand the complete vCenter server build procedure in the real-time scenario, configuration process, and also the manage. So let's look at our today's outline. Yeah, this is the complete discussion points. vCenter 7 Server 7.0 architecture. I will quickly recap the architecture again. And vCenter server build procedure in real-time scenario, and vCenter server deploy resource requirement. This resource requirement we observed yesterday. Again, I just captured the all the resource requirements information, and we'll deploy the vCenter server in our home lab and vCenter server appliance log file. Same like during our Esxi host installation time, we will also observe the ESX server installation complete real-time scenario build process. So same way we can observe the real-time process for the vCenter as well. And also we observe the same like ESXi host log file, we will also observe our vCenter server appliance log files information. And additional points are VMware vSphere architecture high level overview. Because vSphere means it consists of main products ESXi and vCenter. We started already started installing vCenter server. So I will introduce the VMware vSphere architecture complete high level overview. And during the discussing of high level overview, one of the key point is SDDC. So we'll discuss about what is SDDC. Okay, software defined data center overview. And finally, we'll end the session with vCenter server, inventory objects, features, and integrations. Okay, if we learn the complete vCenter server inventory objects, features, and integration means that is our complete VMware vSphere 7.0 course completion once we familiar with all features. Okay, so let's start with the vCenter 7.0 architecture. So as discussed, as per our yesterday discussion, vCenter server we know it is mainly to manage multiple ESXi hosts. For our easy understanding in this architecture diagram, I took 3 ESXi hosts. So to manage not only 3, we can manage n number of ESXi hosts. There is some limitation as per the VMware website. So the limitation for vCenter 7.0 is we can manage up to 2500 ESXi host. Okay, and so that's the reason I just took the 3 year success host. And when we install vCenter server, it will comes with some additional modules. So we no need to install some modules. It comes with the default with a vCenter server. And one of the additional module is vSphere Client HTML5. So this using vSphere HTML5, we connect from our one of the system. From this system, we can access our vCenter server. And vCenter server have a default inbuilt database name is PostgreSQL. And also there is additional component which is platform service controller. In short form, we say PSC. So platform service control comes with a vCenter server single sign-on. Why they are giving vCenter single sign-on is there is multiple additional components in vCenter server. In order to log into all vCenter server component, we no need to provide a every time the login credential. We always log in with a vCenter server single sign-on. In our vCenter server, by default, there are two administrator accounts. One is root ROOT root, same like our ESXi host, and another administrator account is administrator@vsphere.local. These two are the default administrators for vCenter server. And also we can use the Active Directory domain integration. So by default, when we plan to install a vCenter server, we must and should create a DNS record, and also we should join our vCenter server to domain controller. Suppose in our lab, we created a Active Directory domain. Our domain name is demolab.com. So we need to join our vCenter server to our existing domain, as well as in our DNS server, we have to create a vCenter server DNS record, same like our ESXi host. Okay, and the same point we mentioned here, vCenter server is supported by vSphere client and vCenter server database and managed host. Managed host means either more than two ESX host. Okay, and vSphere client means it's a HTML5 based user interface that let us connect to the vCenter server instances by using web browser. So web browser means to access our vCenter server, you can just open any browser, like we can open a Microsoft Edge, or we can open a Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox, any supported browser. We can just open the supported browser and type our vCenter server IP address. It will launch the vCenter server homepage. So in order to launch the vCenter server homepage, we are accessing through vSphere client HTML5. Okay, we'll observe today how the vSphere client HTML5 looks like. Okay. Now let's observe the vCenter server build procedure in real-time scenario. Okay, so this is the same like our ESX level. Every time whenever we plan to do any of the fresh setup, we have to prepare for pre-installation steps, and we have to look for a installation process and post-installation steps. So vCenter server pre-installation steps, we'll quickly look. We few points we already discussed yesterday. So let me quickly run through all the points. So first point is verify that our system meets the minimum software and hardware requirements for vCsa install. vCsa means vCenter Server Appliance. So before installing vCsa, we need to verify software and hardware requirements. Software means our vCenter server we are installing on a ESX server. So ESX operating system is one of the software, VMware hypervisor software. So that ESXi host, we should finalize which ESX host we are planning to choose to install the vCenter server. That is also one of the requirement. And also hardware requirement. Hardware means do we have enough CPU, enough memory, and enough storage, and also the NIC card. So these four requirements also we should meet, and then only we can start the installation of vCenter server. If you observe our yesterday scenario, our ESXi host is running with less resource CPU memory. So during the installation, we face the error message. So to resolve that error message, what we did, we increased the ESXi host CPU and memory, and again we retried the vCenter server installation process. Okay, so that is the reason this is one of the key point. Before we start the VCSA, we need to verify whether we have a minimum software and hardware requirements. So why I mentioned minimum means in our vCenter server installation process, there is a multiple sizes of vCenter server. You can deploy in a tiny size vCenter server or small like t-shirt sizes. We can use small size, medium size, large, X large. So minimum means it's at least we should meet our tiny size requirements to install a vCenter server in our environment, and also download the vCenter server installer ISO file from VMware website. So just we go to the VMware website, products and features, you can just choose the downloadable ISO file, or in the Google, you can just type vCenter 7.0 download. When you type the vCenter server 7.0 download, it will redirect you to the direct VMware website. Okay, so enter the VMware website login credentials and you can download. And the third point, mount it to a network VM. Whenever we download this ISO file, just ready to choose one network VM to mount this ISO file. You can mount on either a physical machine or you can mount on any of the physical server. So anything is fine. And for from which we want to perform the deployment. So from which system you want to try to deploy, you can choose one VM, either a one VM or one physical server. Okay. In our lab system, I choose the lab workstation machine to start the installation process. And the machine from which we deploy the appliance must run on a either Windows platform, Linux, or Macintosh OS. But in our home lab, we are using a Windows system to launch the VCSA setup. But we also have additional options. You can either use a Linux machine or Macintosh operating system. Okay, because VMware giving you multiple options, we can choose any one option to install a VCSA. Okay, even yesterday during installation, we observed that VCSA we can install in a three methods. We can install either on a graphical user interface method or command line interface method, or third method is import the open virtual appliance. Even when you import the OVF file also, it will deploy automatically. Okay, and another point is gather the target ESXi host details. So we have to gather the ESXi host detail, which host we are trying to install a VCSA. and verify that Esxa host not in the lockdown or maintenance mode. Suppose if you plan to install vCenter server on one ESX host, if the ESX host is in a maintenance mode, it won't allow you to install. So just before we install, we verify that host should be not in the maintenance mode and verify NTP server running state. NTP servers normally in the real-time scenario, there will be a depends on the customer requirement. Some customers they will configure NTP server on Windows Active Directory server, or some companies they maintain NTP server as a physical device. Same like our network device switch router, we also have a some network NTP devices also. For example, Microsemi is one of the NTP device vendor name. So you can use Microsemi device also to configure NTP for all your network systems, either ESX host or vCenter server. So if you are plan to use NTP server physical device, make sure that that NTP device should be up and running. Some or else some cases we no need to configure NTP during installation. Once the installation is completed, we can sync our vCenter server NTP time with ESXi host time also. That is also another option. Okay, and get the IP settings from networking team or IP inventory sheet. Here I mentioned as IP settings. IP settings means IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, DNS. All the details we should must get ready to assign this information on a during vCenter installation. We need to enter these details and get the storage details also. Because to install vCenter server, we need some size. So which data store you want to install, get ready with the storage. But in our home lab, we are only the storage team. That's why I mentioned as optional. And create a host record and pointer records in a DNS server with the fixed IP address and FQDN. FQDN is nothing but a vCenter server name. FQDN full form is fully qualified domain name. Okay, and get ready with the supported web browser. So as I mentioned, browser can be, you can use either Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox or Microsoft Edge, anything for vSphere client access. Okay, this is the pre-installation steps. Now we are going to verify the installation process. See, installation process, as per our yesterday discussion, when we mount the ISO file, installation of vCenter server is a two-stage process, stage 1 and stage 2. Stage 1 mainly for deploying the vCenter server. During the deploy of vCenter server, you can deploy OVF file as a vCenter server appliance, or another option is during the first stage, it involves also we need to choose the one of the ESXi host to install vCenter server and define vCenter server appliance name. vCenter server appliance name, whatever name we want to keep, we need to keep the specific name, and you can enter the root password. Okay, and select the deployment size, memory, CPU, and storage size. This size is nothing but a same like t-shirt sizes. You can choose your relevant infrastructure size. But in our home lab, we are choosing the tiny size. But in the real-time scenario, we need to choose the specific size only. And the data store location, always recommend to choose thin disk. Thin disk, we have a disk, normally two types of disk, thin disk and thick disk. When we choose the thin disk, the storage will not occupy immediately. It will fill the disk size only on demand basis. Suppose if I choose the thick disk means the disk will commit immediately. Let's take an example of thin disk and thick disk. Suppose my hard disk size is 100 GB, and my during the installation of virtual machine, I choose my operating system size is only 10 GB. Even though if you assign a 100 GB, 10 GB it will occupy, it will shows the free space as 9 GB, 90 GB. That is in the thin disk format. Suppose if I configure as a thick disk format, even though our operating system uses 10 GB, but our data store shows that complete 100 GB is in used. That is the difference between thin and thick. I will explain in detail in the upcoming classes. I will show you the notes also for the thin disk and thick disk. And another option is configure IP settings. So whatever we collected in the pre-installation stage, during the installation process, we need to enter those IP address details. So, but in our lab, we are using IP version 4, but even the real-time scenario, either you can use IP version 4 or IP version 6. It's subjected to be customer's requirement. And the stage 2 set up vCenter server. So we are going to set up the vCenter server at the stage 2. So stage 2, by default, once we complete the stage 1, it will shows the message as login to vCenter server management interface, vCenter appliance management interface. In short form, we call it as Whammy portal. So Whammy portal means, don't confuse, it's a VMware vCenter virtual appliances management interface. So you can use either Whammy portal or management interface portal. The portal is like a HTTPS, our vCenter server IP address, or excuse me, our vCenter server IP address, or FQDN colon 5480 portal. When we enter this URL, it will retrigger it to the setup of vCenter server. Sorry. Okay, once we log into the vCenter server Whammy portal, the next step is we have to configure the appliance time synchronization and vCenter SSO. SSO means single sign-on. And the last step is second stage completes the setup of a deployed vCenter server. And now we'll go to the post installation steps. See, post installation steps are here. There are some plenty of post installation steps, but a few steps I just mentioned as optional because each topic will take roughly 1 hour to discuss. So whatever the optional I mentioned, this one we'll discuss in the following classes. Okay, but we'll cover the main important post installation steps today. The first step, as I mentioned, log into the vCenter server getting started page. Either you can enter just HTTPS IP address or host name, or sometimes we can also use the port number 443. 443 is a HTTPS port number. Okay. Any method we can access. Without port number also we can connect. Once we log into this URL, it will redirect using a vSphere client only, vSphere client HTML5. Once log into vCenter server, we can start to create, organize our vCenter server inventory objects. Okay, inventory, there are plenty of inventory objects. I will explain one by one what is the vCenter server inventory objects. And same like ESX server, even once we log into vCenter server, we need to assign the vCenter server appliance license. Whatever license your company procure, the same license we need to enter in the vCenter layer. And also we need to enable the shell and secure shell. Both need to be enabled. This is required to maintain our ESX vCenter server via command line method. And not only shell and SSH, we also have other option, VMware Power CLI. We can install the VMware Power CLI also. It is one of the tool we can download from VMware website. I will show you in the later classes how to use the Power CLI to access our vCenter server. Okay, and also we need to configure NTP, SNMP, NTP for time synchronization, SNMP for monitoring purpose, simple network management protocol, and SMTP for mail transfer protocol. This mail transfer protocol mainly for in our vCenter server. Let's say we have a 100 Esxa host and 1000 virtual machines. All of the sudden, any of the host is down or any virtual machine is down. If you want to get notified, SMTP needs to be configured. So for email notification, whenever any alert comes, immediately you will get the automatic email. So for that purpose, we need to configure SMTP. And also another point, apply vCsa patches. So suppose if there is any latest patches available in VMware website, we need to apply the latest patch also before moving the vCenter to production. So that's why I mentioned as optional. If there is no patches, just ignore this point. Okay, and again the another important is once we log into the vCenter server, the first thing we need to do is create a data center. So data center not limited to one, we can create multiple data centers. Suppose your company have 4 branches, you can create 4 data centers. Each site you can create one data center. For example, I have 4 branches. One is in Hyderabad, one is in Delhi, one is in Pune, and another one is Andhra Pradesh. So for 4 locations, you can create 4 data centers. Okay, and the adding the host is the following point. So we need to add the Esxa host to vCenter server under the specific location data center, and then configure ESXi host networking. In ESXi host networking, as per our previous sessions, we know how to configure vSwitch, but in the vCenter server, we are going to learn DV switch configuration also. So DV switch means distributed virtual switch. As a VMware engineer, we need to learn both, because there is a chances of our company may have some remote branch, but remote branch, your requirement is only one ESX host. There is no vCenter. So during that scenario, we should recommend to learn vSwitch concept also. But if you have vCenter multiple ESX hosts, always recommended process DV switch, but DV switch require a additional enterprise licenses. Okay, only with the enterprise less license only we will get this feature. If we do not have enterprise license, we are not supposed to use the DV switch. Even if you're trying to create DV switch, it says update your license. Okay, and another point, configure ESXi host storage. Even storage also, as a vSphere engineer, we need to learn all types of storage, but in the customer environment, no one will use all types of storage. They may use at least two types of storages. Normally local everyone will use, and within the NAS, iSCSI and SAN, some company they may limit it to one type of storage, and some companies they may use for two types of storages. The reason is for high, usually SAN cost is very high, and iSCSI is medium range storage, and NAS is low cost. Suppose most of the time, based on my experience, what I observed is storage area network sandbox we used mainly for a production data, and if you have any test and development, we will use for a NAS storage. Suppose if your organization is very small organization, they are not interested to invest on the much on the sandbox, they will invest on a NAS and iSCSI. During that scenario, iSCSI can be dedicated for production VMs, and NAS can be dedicated for a test and development VMs. Suppose your budget is very low, no other choice. We need to ignore iSCSI and SAN. We'll dedicate it to only NAS box. Okay, so it's completely depends on the customer requirement, which storage we need to use in our vSphere environment. But as a vSphere systems engineer, we need to learn all the concepts: how to configure NAS, how to configure iSCSI, and how to configure storage area network. Okay, so for all these topics, we have a separate sessions. During that session, I will explain in detail. Okay, and even the DV switch also will discuss in detail. Just to understand, once the vCenter is ready, these are all the steps we can perform. And create virtual machines. This portion we know already, and we also need to configure template, clone, snapshot. For each topic, we have a one separate sessions. Okay, and create cluster and enable cluster features. This is also important. But in the immediate installation, post installation, if it is a plan to move it to production, we need to do all these steps. But in our lab environment, I will explain all these topics in the upcoming sessions. Okay, but we should learn what is a key post installation steps. Okay, and we need to configure the syslog. Syslog is to maintain the all the vCenter server logs, retention purpose. All retention logs will maintain in a syslog server, and create a test VM and test the image backup, whether the vCenter level, all the VMs backup is running smoothly or not. Not only VMs, we need to also take the backup of vCenter server. Okay, and we can open the firewall ports also. Why we need to open firewall ports is, suppose as I mentioned, we have a 4 data centers: Hyderabad, Andhra Pradesh, Delhi, and Pune. Suppose from Pune, I am trying to access the Hyderabad data center, vCenter server. During that time, we need the firewall port need to be open between Pune and Hyderabad location. Once the firewall port is open, then only we can access, or else there will be a some block. So it is required, whenever any firewall ports necessary, then we can open the firewall ports. And export the vCenter server support bundle for troubleshooting. If you have any issues on the vCenter level, we should know how to export the vCenter server support bundle. This is also optional step. And we can enable the VMware enhanced authentication plugin. Normally this feature is used for to interact with the multiple vCenter servers. Like if you have 4 branches, all 4 branches vCenter servers, if you want to enable the enhanced linked mode facility, this plugin needs to be installed. And we can also repoint vCenter to another vCenter server in a different domain. This is also optional because if your environment have one vCenter, we no need to do repoint to another vCenter. If we have multiple vCenters only, we can use this point. And this is important. Validate the vCsa health status. Once the installation is completed, we need to verify health status for all resources. Resources means CPU, memory, storage, and network interface card. Okay, all resources we need to verify the health status. Once all status is good, we start managing the vSphere environment. And this is the end of the vCsa deployment process. Okay, so today we'll start from the stage 2 because yesterday we already did the stage 1. And before start, quickly observe the sizing requirement. This sizing requirement, if you remember yesterday during installation itself, it shows the sizing process. I just captured it here for our understanding. See, resources required for different deployment sizes. So if you use tiny, minimum CPUs are 2, and the memory is minimum requirement 12 GB, and the storage is minimally 500 plus size is required. Okay, and it will support maximum up to 10 hosts and 100 virtual machines. Okay, that is the importance of tiny. And if we increase the size to small and medium, similarly the CPU, memory, storage, and all the sizes will increase. If you use the X large, the maximum it supports up to 35,000 virtual machines. Okay, this is about the vCenter server deploy resource requirements. And now the same deployment point. So yesterday we just select the vCsa deploy installer install option we used. Now today we'll start with the second option, configure in the vCenter server. Okay, and the log bundles, I just given the point how to verify the vCenter log bundles. We'll discuss this log bundle once we complete the vCenter server installation process. Now we'll connect to our lab system. Okay. So I connected to the lab system. Yesterday we tried the two installation process. One is in the appliance format and one is in the directly on the ESX box. So two installations are completed actually. So one vCenter server we given the IP address 79 and another vCenter we given the IP address is 78. When the stage 1 is completed, you'll find the screen is like this. It clearly says that please visit the following URL to configure this appliance. So either you can use our vCenter server host name, fully qualified domain name, or you can use IP address. Any method you can use. And while configuring, we need to enter the port number. Port number is 5480. So now let me open a browser and we'll try to configure the stage 2 step. So open Google Chrome. You can use not only Google Chrome, you can use Mozilla Firefox or Microsoft Edge. Any browser you can use. So I'm just typing our vCenter server IP 78:5480. When I type 5480, it will redirect it to the stage 2 step. Okay, it's loading. See, while logging to the vCenter server appliance, it's prompting for username and password. So let me enter the password. See, getting started vCenter server. If you read the warning message, it clearly says vCenter server 7.0 has been installed. However, additional steps must be completed before it is available for use. So click on one of the link below to continue setup. Okay, but in our scenario, what is the recommended one? We are not doing any upgrade, we are not doing migrate, we are not doing any restoration. Our recommended step is setup. So setup means configure a new vCenter server. So just click on this option. So see, you can clearly notice that there is a tick mark. Stage 1 is completed. Now we are into the stage 2. Okay, now select the stage 2, click on next. See, when we select the stage 2, you can just review the vCenter server configuration. Yesterday, we assigned the IP address, IP version 4, and our IP address, everything we entered. And now click on next. Okay, so now here it is says that single sign-on domain name. We need to enter the single sign-on domain name. Just a minute. Sorry. Okay, we need to enter the single sign-on domain name. So single sign-on domain name default it is showing as vsphere.local. We can recommend to enter either the same name, or you can also configure our internal Active Directory domain name. Anything we can use. So I'm just going with the default domain name vsphere.local. So that means to log into vCenter server, this is the default domain SSO single sign-on domain name. Okay, I'm configuring the default one. And the default single sign-on username is administrator. So, but when you log into vCenter server, remember that we need to enter like a administrator at the rate vsphere.local. That format only we need to enter. And let me enter the password. Okay, I just given the password. Suppose if I want to add to my existing as a existing SSO domain, we can choose the second option. But in our environment, we have only one vCenter. So we'll choose the even the SSO domain. This is only the first SSO domain. So that's why relevant option is first option. So now click on next. When we select next, it is asking for configure CEAP. CEAP means customer experience improvement program. Either if you want to choose, you can choose, or else just leave it as it is. Now click on next. See, now we are ready to complete. See, if you notice here, you can find the network details, vCenter server details, and also SSO details. If you see the time synchronization and SSH, default is disabled. We can enable once the vCenter installation is completed. That's the reason I mentioned these two steps here in a post installation steps. Okay, so now click on finish. So it says that you will not be able to pause or stop install from completion once it is started. So once the installation is started, it's not recommended to pause or stop. Okay, so we are okay to continue. So just click on OK. See, now if you notice here, install stage 2 vCenter server setup is in progress. And it is showing the error message. Let's read the error message. The supplied system name VCSA demo lab is not valid. If the supplied domain FQDN, make sure that DNS forward lookup is, we need to create the lookup record. Okay, so it's clearly given the error and also the resolution it's given. So it's correct. Even if you notice our pre-installation steps, in our pre-installation steps, we already mentioned that we need to create a DNS record. So we missed that DNS record creation. So we'll create a DNS record first. So to create a DNS record, just close this option, close. See, unable to log into the deployment status. Okay, we'll reinitiate again. So let's log into our Active Directory system and we'll create a DNS record. DNS mgmt.msc. When you open a DNS server, we need to create a forward lookup zone and reverse lookup zone for that system. So select demo lab. See, we already have AD system with registered with IPv4 and IPv6, and we have ESX1 and ESX2. Now we are going to create for a vCenter server. And vCenter server, let me choose what is the name we given. We given the name is vCsa. So let's choose the same name. So right click here and we need to create a host record. Host record means new host, and enter our vCsa name, vCsa, and also the IP address. So 192.168.10.78 is our vCenter server IP address, and we need to create a pointer record also. When you select this one, it will create automatically in the reverse lookup zone. So now click on allow any authenticated user to update DNS record with the same owner name. Okay, this is also fine. Just select all. So add host. So host record successfully created. Done. So let me refresh. Now we'll observe on the reverse lookup zone. So reverse lookup zone also we have a all record, our AD record, 2ESX record, and also the vCenter server record. Okay, so we have the vCenter server record. So we will retry again. Let me refresh. We'll remove this error message and retype the URL, refresh. Unable to get the deployment status. Okay, this scenario, what we can do is we'll quickly reboot the vCenter server once and we can retry. So to restart, just press F12. And press F11 to restart. See, it's a port on operating system version 3.0. Okay, so now it is restarted. We'll retry again. Even in the home page, you can see there is a, if you want to export the support bundle, this is the URL. We need to enter the fully qualified domain name :443 slash appliance slash support bundle to export the log files. And it says the error message failed to start services, first boot error. There is a error message. Okay, during that scenario, we'll retry once again, minimize. 78:5480. Okay, now enter the password. Unable to get the deployment status. Seems to be it's completely unable to do. So what we can do is we can remove this virtual machine and we can retry. Okay, so to remove that process, so it's just to power off the virtual machine, guest shutdown guest, and now let me remove and we can quickly deploy. So to deploy, just go to the home, connect to remote server. Uh, we no need to connect the ESX. We'll just try to deploy the image. So how we can deploy is we can just use the option open a virtual machine option and we can select our vCenter server appliance. So click on open and it's prompt for the enter use license agreement, accept, click on next, and our vCenter server name, we plan to choose the name as VCSA, click on next, and size is tiny, click on next, and the network configuration here is IP address family is IP version 4 and the network mode is static and IP address 78 and subnet mask we can just enter 24. 24 means 888. Okay, and the gateway 1 and DNS server is our AD server IP 70 and the network identity we need to enter the fully qualified domain name. Okay, we'll give as vCsa dot our demolab.com, our domain name. Okay, this is called fully qualified domain name. Now click on import. So now it start imploding the VCSA. See, if you notice, even when we miss the one pre-installation step also, it got failed. So instead of troubleshooting the error, the best way is we can redeploy again. Okay. So import is completed. It's loading the operating system. We can just monitor the installation status. We can just wait for a while. It will load the home page. Let me try login. We haven't set the any ID password yet. So we can just wait for a while. It will load completely with the screen. Yeah. Or else we can just try from the browser. It's taking some time. Yeah, now it's completed. See, if you see here, it clearly says that to manage vCenter server, we need to log into the, okay, we'll just wait for some more time. Appliance management service are getting started now. Okay, it's already IP is up. Unable to authenticate user. So that means still some service is loading. Wait little more time. Okay, now it's completely up. And if you read the message, it says that please visit the following URL to configure the appliance. So same URL we are trying, either a host name or IP address. You can type the port number 5480 and our root password is not set. So we'll refresh and try now. Let me close. Stage 1 RPM installation. Okay. We'll close the browser and retry again. Just clearing the cache. Okay. Now we can retry again. Okay, now it's prompt for the password. Unable to authenticate user. So that means password is not yet set. So log into the console. We can set the password first. Even the message also says root password is not set. So let me press F2. Okay, now the password is set. If you see the right side message, it says that configure root password is set. Okay, now just escape here to log out. Okay, the screen will refresh soon. Now we'll try from the browser. Just refresh, enter the password. Oh, service is not available this time. somehow the password is not logging in. In the meantime, let me try the other vCenter. We also deployed yesterday other vCenter, which is 79. So let me try with this URL. The second deployment was completed. So I just selected the 79, click on advanced, login. Okay. When we log into the vCenter server, the first URL is vCenter server IP address. Either you can enter :443 port number, or you can just type the IP address if we can log in. So when we log into vCenter server homepage, we are logging through vSphere client only. The same point we mentioned in our architecture diagram. We connected using vSphere HTML5 client. Okay. So I connected to the 79 vCenter. This one yesterday we installed on the our ESX server level. Okay, if you open a VMware workstation, if you see the 71 Esxa host, it's running with vCenter and the memory is high because complete memory assigned for a vCenter server. So this vCenter server URL is 10.79. Okay, so now I'm trying to access the 79 and it seems to be the 78 one. There is some password issue. Maybe I entered the wrong password. I will check it. This one I will check later. In the meantime, we'll work on a 79 vCenter. Okay. When we select the 79, click on Launch vSphere Client. It will prompt for a vSphere Client login. So default administrator is administrator@vsphere.local and password. Okay, this is the first initial login to vCenter server using vSphere client. So when login to the vCenter server, see there is so many shortcuts and inventory objects and also the some of the monitoring objects and some administration tasks. Even if I click on the menu option in the left side, you will find some additional features. Okay, before going to discuss on this one, let me try the another page also. Another page is Whammy page, and Whammy page we can see from when we see here, one of the point I mentioned that Whammy page. Either you can connect to the IP address or we can also connect to the Whammy interface. For Whammy interface, the IP is you can just enter https:/IP address and port number is 5480. We'll connect to the Whammy interface first. So type the same IP address 79:5480. Okay, for the Whammy interface, username is not the administrator. We need to use the username is root and password. Okay, so this is the our vCenter server management console, or we can say Whammy console, vCenter appliance management interface console. So when we see here, we can see the all the information here. The host name is localhost, product is VMware vCenter server, and version is 7.0.3. And there is a build number also. The build number is clear build number is below. Okay, and uptime is 22 hours because we deployed this one also yesterday only. Okay, and now this is the summary page information. Within the summary page you can see the health status, and overall health status it's supposed to be green but it is showing as alert. So why the alert is, if you see here, CPU status is good, database status is good, storage, swap, everything is good. But when we see the memory, memory says that appliance is running on low memory. So the only solution for this is we need to increase the memory for appliance. So in order to increase the memory, the solution is just open the VMware workstation, and this vCenter is running on ESX server. See, ESX server memory is low and ESX running with only 16 GB. The only solution is we need to increase the memory on the ESXi level. So select the ESX level, we need to increase. But in the workstation layer, if you want to increase the memory, we'll try. So let me try to increase the memory. but it's not allowing. That means it require a restart. Okay, that alert for time being you can just ignore. I will fix it. Okay, I will just increase the memory to resolve this alert message. And a single sign-on also one of the vCenter server default component, and the domain we given the default domain vsphere.local, and the single sign-on service status is running state. Okay, this is about the management console summary tab. Suppose if I select the monitor tab, in this monitor tab, compared to vSphere previous version 6 series editions, in our 7 series, there is some enhanced features for all the monitoring options. See, you can see our vCenter server CPU and memory status two graphs. See, the above graph refers the CPU graph and below graph refers the memory graph. Okay, and if you see the memory, it's almost more than 75% usage. The current usage is 85.6. See, that's the reason the graph is completely high. And the CPU is just low usage only. The usage is showing 14.3% CPU usage. Okay, and not only like this, we can also see the status for last day, last week, last month, last year also. But our vCenter is very new vCenter, so we can see for last day also. So this is the last day graph status, CPU performance status and memory performance status. Similarly, we can also check the status for disks. See, all our vCenter server have multiple disks. These disks are we haven't created during the appliance provision itself. It's created automatic partitions. This partition same like hard disk 1, 2, 3 means it's the same like our Windows system C drive, D drive, E drive. These partitions are automatically created by OVF. Okay, and another tab is network tab. When we click on network tab, we can see the vCenter server network related information. What is our Ethernet card? Is there any errors detected? Currently it is showing as completely zero. That means there is no issues on the network. In case of any packet drops, we can find the errors and packet drops information here. See, for packet drops, if you see here, there is an option for packet drops information. If you see the complete line means our network is stable. If there is any packet drop, you will see there is some breaks within this line. Okay, and this is about the network monitor. Now similarly for database, vCenter server also database. Database name is PostgreSQL database. So that database, how much space it is utilized, all information we can find here. Currently there is no much utilization because it's a fresh vCenter. There is no configuration data yet. Okay, now select the access tab. So in this access tab, you can see the access settings, SSH login session enable, but usually by default it's not enabled. We need to click on edit and we need to enable the status here. See, this is for enable SSH login. That is, the SSH login means secure shell login. We can use to connect our vCenter server using putty session. And the DCUI means direct console user interface. Same like our ESX, vCenter also have a DCUI mode. And enable console CLI, console level also there is a CLI mode. This should be enabled. And enable bash shell. If you want to enable bash shell also, we can enable bash shell. Okay, if you want to set the time, you can set the bash shell timeout time. Let's say 1 minute I set. Now click on OK. So all the status access settings are enabled. These all are, if you refer, all are the command line methods only. Okay, it's not for a graphical user, it's a direct user interface or else command line interface options. Okay, now come to the networking tab. In our networking tab, we can see our Esxa host, vCenter server network settings, our DNS IP, and also our MAC address for vCenter server, our vCenter server IP address, and subnet mask. Subnet mask is /24. That means 255.255.255.0, and the gateway is 10.1. And the proxy settings, the currently proxy settings all are disabled. If you want to enable the settings, just click on edit and we need to enable the settings. But when you enable FTP, we need to maintain our FTP server in our internal environment. At present we do not have, so I'm just disabling. If you want to enable, this is the option to enable. Come to networking proxy settings, click on edit and we can enable. Okay, now another option is firewall. So even the firewall, currently there is no additional firewall rules. If you want to configure the rules, click on add and we can configure the rules for the specific network interface card and configure IP address and add the rules. Which IP address you need to allow, which IP address you need to ignore, reject and return. Anything you can configure here. Okay. So I'm just canceling this option. We have an option to enable the firewall also at the vCenter server management level. and select the time. Under the time, you can find the NTP configuration. See, the time zone is currently UTC time. If you want to modify any time zone settings, you can just click on edit and you can modify the time zone based on our country time zone. Okay, or else just leave it the default UTC time zone. And come to the services section. Yesterday we discussed the few important services of vCenter server. If I click on startup type, there are so many automatic service starters. Okay, these are all the vCenter server services. The important services we discussed yesterday. Okay, the remaining services, whatever is needed, I will explain in the following classes. So yesterday we discussed this one, vCenter service, vSphere Client, and we also discussed some services are like auto deploy, ESXi dump collector. These and all we discuss. Currently dump collector is in a stop state. If you want to start, just select that one and we can start. But currently there is no ESXi host. That's why it's in the stop state. It's fine. But if you want to do any service start and stop, you can come to the our vCenter server Whammy interface page. Whammy interface page means ESX vCenter server IP address colon 5480. Once login, go to the services section and start the relevant services. Okay, and another tab is update tab. So this update tab will explain us how to update our vCenter server latest patch. It's only for a patching only, it's not for upgrade. Okay, so it will shows if there is any latest patch is available, it will shows the information here. See, it says the last checked is today's date. It's check the patch status. Currently the reboot required, yes, there is a one security patch it is showing. See, run the pre-checks to verify the state. There is a one latest patch is released. If you want to do the update, we can just check for the updates and mount the respective ISO file and do the upgrade. Okay, this option also I will show you in the next classes how to update the vCenter server patch. Okay, but the option is under the Whammy page update page. Okay, and now select the administration session. See, under administration session, there is a password requirement, normally one special character, one uppercase letter, lowercase and all. We need to follow as per the password requirements. Okay. And if you want to increase the password expiry validity, default password expiry validity is 90 days. If you want to increase also, we can increase the password expiry validity period. Or you can set password expiry no. That means there will be no expiry for the password. But normally in the real-time scenario, we need to maintain some validity days, depends on the customer requirement. Okay. So this is the password expiry settings and password, how to maintain the password information. And now come to the syslog. Syslog also one of the important option. When we want to configure a syslog, we need to enter the specific syslog remote server IP address, protocol name. Protocol you can use either TLS, TCP, UDP, any protocol you can use, depends on your syslog server, and enter the port numbers. Okay, but at present we do not configure any syslog server in our infrastructure in our lab environment, so just leave it blank. But this is also part of our post installation step. And come to the last option, backup. Even the backup also is recommended to configure backup for our vCenter server. So in order to configure backup, you can just click on here, activity backup now. But when we click on backup now, we need to configure where we need to store the backup. We need to provide the specific HTTP or SMTP protocol we need to give where to store the backup. Okay, when we configure the backup server in our lab environment, I will show you again how to do the vCenter server backup. But option is under Whammy interface backup. Okay, and even the backup schedule also we haven't configured, but in the real-time scenario, we need to take the backup for vCenter server every day, daily basis. Okay, so these all options covered about the post installation configuration steps. So let's back to our spreadsheet and we'll see what is the options we covered until now. Okay, this is the same like our vCenter server. I prepared the vCenter server pre-installation steps. So we observed how to, what is the minimum requirement for vCsa. So let's consider this as a done. Okay, and we also downloaded the ISO file from VMware website. This is also done. And we already mounted the ISO and install. So this process also done. And target Esxa host. All these options are completed. Even IP settings we provided, storage details we provided, DNS record we created today, and a browser we are using Google Chrome browser. So all these options are we verified pre-installation steps. And during the installation process, we observed the two types of installation. One is OVF method, one is mounting directly on the Esxa host method. Okay, so this step also we completed, and stage one completed and stage two process also completed. Now come to the post installation steps. Just now we connected our vCenter server. We observed how the vCenter server look like. This option we observed. And now log into the vCenter server HTML5 also we connected, but we haven't started discussing any additional concepts. Just we connected and observe the vCenter server. And now the immediate step what they're saying is start to create and organize the vCenter server inventory objects. This step we are going to do now. I just put as a in progress. And the vCenter server license, anyhow in our lab we are using a evaluation free edition, 60 days it will work. So I just make it as a done. And enable vCsa shell and SSH. Just now we enable. How we enable the SSH? Log into the Whammy page, go to the access, and we see SSH DCA we enable just now. Okay, just minimize, and we know how to enable the shell and SSH. And also the NTP time synchronization also we observed that that is also comes under the time. Under Whammy page time we can enable the time settings. Okay, time zone it's subjected to be our country location. Okay, suppose if you are supporting to the UK customer, you can mention the time zone is based on the UK time zone. You can set the time zone specifically. Okay, so we know how to enable the SNMP, NTP, and SNMP and SMTP. I will show you. That is also the one of the options available in the vCenter server. I will show you similar to NTP. And apply patches. We just observed there is a tab for update to apply the patches, but the full update installation process we'll discuss in the next classes. So option we observed. So I make it as a done. And now create data center and all as part of inventory object it will come these options. We'll do it now. And the syslog server option we just observed where we can configure the syslog, and we observe the option for backup of vCsa option only we observed, but the detailed concept I will show you. Okay, and the firewall ports also we observed. It is also from the Whammy interface page. And the support bundle we'll observe today, and enhanced also this one we can observe we haven't tested yet. And vCsa health status we observed. So vCsa health status we can verify from the directly from summary page. When we collect to Whammy interface, go to the summary, we'll find the overall interface health status. But we notice that there is a memory issue. So memory is running with low memory. We know the solution. We need to increase the memory for ESXi host and virtual machine. So I will resolve this memory issue. Okay. So we observe the how to verify the health status portion also, and start managing the vSphere environment. We haven't started yet, so we'll do the remaining steps now. The remaining steps also I'm not going to cover all today. The all option steps are it's a separate sessions. So I will show you how to create data center, how to add the ESXi host today. Okay, so now log into our vCenter server. When we log into the vCenter server, for initial post configuration steps, we use the Whammy interface. Once your Whammy steps are completed, just log out from here, and we can log into the direct vSphere client page. So vSphere client page also I will show you again. Let's log out the page. I will open again. We can just type our vCenter server IP address 79 and enter. When we log into the vCenter server IP address using any browser, Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, or Microsoft Edge, when we type this one, it will directly show you the getting started page. In the getting started page, you will find the option to launch vSphere client HTML5. Okay, you can just click on launch HTML5 page, and here you will find the options. Okay, so you can see the shortcuts for inventory and all. I will explain all the options one by one. So first option is go to the host and clusters. So just click on here. It will redirect you to the host and clusters view. And when we go to the host and clusters view, the first step is we need to create a data center. So even in our post installation step, I mentioned the point is create a data center in vCenter server. So I'm going to create a data center now. In order to create a data center, log into the vSphere client, select the host and clusters. In the right side, you can see the option for data center. So when I click data center, you can find the options here to create data center here. So just right click and you can see the option to new data center. Currently in our data center tab, there is no data centers, no items found because it's a fresh vCenter. Just now we installed. So now right click the vCenter server name and here it's showing as IP address. It's fine. Right click here. You can find the option is new data center. And this is the icon for data center icon. So click on new data center and enter our data center name is any data center. So whatever data center you want to keep, you can keep the data center. For example, I want to keep the data center name as, normally we'll keep the data center names as a location name, or you can put your company name also we can keep. For example, I'm putting the data center name as demo lab data center. Okay, so any name we can keep. Normally if you want to maintain multiple data centers, we need to maintain as a location name. For example, I put the location name as Singapore demo lab data center. Okay, the location is selected, name, and this is the location. Now click on OK. So data center is created, but there is no object. If you see that when I select the data center, it shows no host, zero, virtual machine, cluster, network, everything is zero. Okay, I just created a logical data center only. Okay, if I want to create one more data center, suppose I have another data center in India, just select here new data center. You can put the name, whatever the name you want. Let's say I'm just putting the name as India data center, India demo lab data center. Okay, now click on OK. So like this we can configure a multiple data center, depends on the our customer requirement. If our customer have 4 data centers, you can just create 4 data center like this. Right click, new data center. So hope you understand data center creation. It's just pretty simple. Right click on new data center, and data center is just a logical container only. It represents our location and information. Okay, so now this point is completed. Create data center in vCenter server. Now we'll observe how to add the Esxa host to vCenter. We'll observe the how to add the data center. Let's log into the our vCenter server using vSphere client. Now, how we can add the ESX host is right click the vCenter server, and here if you see the direct vCenter server, there is no option to add host. ESXi host we can add only on a under the data center object level only. Okay, so if I right click the vCenter, see under data center level, I can create data center or I can create a folder. We can export the log files, we can assign the license, tags and object. Only these options only available. There is no option to add host. So remember that host we can add only on a data center level. So select the data center. Suppose I want to add it on a India demo lab data center. Just select India, right click. You can find the option to add host. So select add host. While adding the host, we need to choose the specific ESXi host IP address or host name. Suppose our vCenter server, our ESXi host IP is 192.168.10.71. So I selected the 71, click on next. And you can enter the username, root and password. So now click on next. It's a security certificate trust warning. You can just click on yes to proceed. Now it is showing our host summary information. Our ESX host running with 3 VMs, even our host running with our vCenter also. Okay, now click on next. See, it's asking to assign license or default it's running with the evaluation license. Still we have a 59 days grace period. Okay, so we have a still few more days to use this license. Now click on next. And lockdown mode, what is the recommendation? We just keep the lockdown mode as disable state. So now click on next. and we are choosing the location as India Demo Lab Data Center. Click on next and now click on finally. This is our ready to complete option. We select our Esxa host under this India Demo Lab Data Center, and our version is 7.0 evaluation license, and networks and all we have just selected the default option. Now click on finish. See, in the recent task, you can find add ESXi host is in progress. It's in the 80%. See, if you see the details tab, you can find retrieving data from vCenter agent. That means when you are adding the ESX host to vCenter server, our vCenter will communicate to vCenter agent to pull all the ESXi host information. Yesterday, during the communication, we discussed about vCenter agent information. Okay. See, our process data adding host is completed, processing data from vCenter agent on 10.71 host. Okay, if I expand here, see, you can see the our ESXi host. Even if I select my ESXi host, see, there is a multiple option. You can configure the networks, you can configure data store, everything in the vCenter. The same method, if I trying to access from our workstation, even workstation also I added the host, but in our ESXi host, if when I add it to workstation, there is no additional features. So would you recommend to manage from vCenter or will you recommend using workstation? Which one you prefer?
From vCenter.
So the recommendation is vCenter server, because vCenter server only we have a all the multiple features are available. So how we added 71. Similarly, if you want to add another ESXi host, just select the data center again, right click, you can choose add host. So I'm choosing the another host. But for example, for our testing purpose, if I want to add another host on a SG data center, just select the data center, right click, here also you can add. So add our data ESX second ESXi host 72. It is adding on a SG Demo Lab data center. Click next. Same procedure as India Lab data center. Enter the login credentials. Once we enter the credential, accept the security alert certificate information. Just accept. So you can see the host summary information. And even our second host also running with 2 virtual machines. Click on next. And license, I'm just using the evaluation, but in the real-time scenario, we need to enter the specific license details. And lockdown mode, just leave it as disable. And VM location, currently there is no VMs, just it's on the default data center location. Click on next. And now see, ready to complete. It is going to add under the SG Demo Lab data center. Just for our testing purpose, I'm showing. Okay, now click on finish. So second host is running on a different data center. In our recent task, you can see add standalone host in progress, and it's processing the data from vCenter agent. Okay, it's completed now. So every task, whatever task you perform on vCenter level, all the task you can see from the recent task. If you want to see from here, or else select the data center, go to the monitor tab. Under monitor, there is an option for task and events. Select a task, you can see the information. Either you can verify from here. Suppose if you want to minimize this widget, just click here, it will go down. You can see from here. Based on your comfort, you can use any method you can use to verify the is the task is completed or not. Okay. So now we managed to add 2 ESXi hosts to vCenter server. But when I select the host, right click, see there are so many options available. So in our next classes, we are going to learn all these features. Even when I select the home, go to the home also, you can see some vCenter server home page information. This one also I will explain one by one. And even if I select the shortcuts, you can see some of the features. So all these features we have to learn one by one. Every day I will take 2 or 3 features to explain for you. Okay, this is just overview class. We installed the vCenter server. We did the few post configuration steps. Let's open our checklist. So as per our checklist, we just created a data center, and we added the host to vCenter server. So this option also completed. And networking, storage, this and all, I will explain separately in the subsequent classes. So I just keeping as a in progress. because within this we know only the virtual machine creation concept. We know the remaining network also, we know only vSwitch, and storage we know about the local storage how to add, and the remaining concept I will explain. Okay, and now come to the export log bundle. See, just now we verified how to export the log bundle. We can export in the multiple ways. We can export from here, go to the host and clusters, select the vCenter server, right click, export system logs. This is the one method to export. Even during the export the logs, even if you want to select the specific host, you can select the specific host and export. This is one method. And another method is, let's back to our slide. In our slide, I mentioned as vCenter appliance log file. There is a URL from VMware website. We can export the log file from two methods. You can export either a GUI method or you can export as a CLI method. So suppose if you want to export from GUI method, we need to type the vCenter server IP address with the port number slash appliance slash support bundle. When you type this also, we can export the vCenter server log bundle. Or else, suppose if I want to try from command line method, connect to our Esxa host using shell or SSH session and type the command is vc-support.sh. When you run this command, it will export our vCenter server support bundle. Okay, so not only these two methods, GUI method, CLI method, we will also export directly from vSphere client also. When we connect to vSphere client, here also we have the option to export the system logs. Okay, so let's open the checklist again. So this whatever highlighted in yellow, we'll discuss in the next classes. Okay, and so this export bundle also we observed, and this one also optional point. If we have a multiple location vCenters, we need to use enhanced linked mode option. So next classes I will explain this one also. And another point also, using the enhanced linked mode option, I will show you the repoint method also. And this is about the end of vCsa deployment. Whatever I highlighted, we'll discuss in the subsequent classes. Okay, so the main key items we completed today's session. Okay, so this is about the vCenter server, pre-installation steps, installation procedure, and post-installation steps. Okay, now let's back to our slide. In today's session, I thought of discussing the some additional points. We will continue the remaining points in the tomorrow session. So the remaining points tomorrow I will cover the vCenter server high level architecture overview. So this is the complete vSphere architecture overview. Today we observed the vCenter server architecture. Tomorrow I explain about the complete vSphere architecture high level overview. During the overview, we can also observe what is SDDC overview, and I will show you the vCenter server inventory object features and integration. See here, I just segregated all our vCenter server inventory objects, features, and also some integration. These are all close to 60. Even some of the features which will cover within the topic. So we have around 60 plus features within the vCenter server. Once we learn all these features, you will become a VMware vSphere systems engineer. Okay, so if you want to become a vSphere systems engineer, we should learn all these features. Okay, at least we should learn 1 to 45 features first, and the last one 46 to 60 all are the advanced features. If you want to become a solution architect, you can just learn these features also. Okay, so for level 2 level 3 engineers, we should learn at least 1 to 45 features. If you want to go for a level 4 like a solution architect, we need to learn the remaining features also 46 to 60. I will cover all these features as well at the end of our vSphere session. Okay, what is importance of all the advanced features? So daily we will complete the at least minimally 2 to 3 features, like that we can cover the remaining concepts. So this is the complete vCenter server features, all the features in a all at one glance view. Once you're familiar all features, that is our end of the course. So tomorrow onwards, we'll start discussing one by one. Even today, if you observe here one of the inventory object, today we observe the VMI. What is the VMI means? VMware vCenter appliance management interface. We observed how to connect to Whammy, and we discussed all the options are available in the Whammy level. And data centers, we observed today how to create a data centers. And host and clusters, we haven't created the cluster yet, and we just created a host. Okay, so tomorrow session, I will explain about the high level overview. I will explain the SDDC overview, and I'll just give the briefing on complete all features, and after the tomorrow session, we'll start discussing every topic individually. Okay, so that's it for today. If you have any questions, please let me know. Any questions on our today's topic? Let me know. If no sign, bye for now.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.